Michael, I have a question for you.
Okay.
How do you feel about Jeff Bezos flying up into space in a big old penis?
Well, it was a giant dick flying in a space dick is pretty much the consensus I got from the internet, so
Sick.
I agree.
Nice.
Is there a lot of room for, would you call them spacemen then, for in the dick?
There were a couple extra people other than himself, so I would say yeah.
Shoremen? Okay. Well, here's a go for you. Define irony. This morning, I wound up, getting dressed and discovered I had an excessive amount of cat hair on my Pet Cemetery t-shirt.
Nice. I mean,
Cute.
ouch, but nice.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a good time. Anyway, hi. Welcome to the Disinformed podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm John.
I'm Michael.
I'm Courtney.
This is how the cold open feels, my friend. This is just going to be, it's a thing.
I still, and I've said it 100 times already, will never stop recommending the audiobook for Pet Cemetery, just because Michael C. Hall, as a narrator, I could listen to that man, and have listened to that man talk for 13 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I'm ready to be heard again at some point in the near future, I'll do it. But there's so many other. I'm desperately going to try to finish every King book on the planet at some point in the next year and a half. I need to just get through the cycle.
Dang.
And I'm halfway through, so all I've got to do is soldier on for another 40, and then I'll be fine.
And that's you not even trying?
Yeah, that's just from the stuff that I've... And this is also me having read multiple times through on many of them.
Yeah, you've gone, repeated.
Since I'm now on my second run-through of Revival within a 2-month period. But, it's a good time. But, so for those of you hanging out who are not Stephen King aficionados and are just blissfully ignorant of what, currently occurs on this show, we will randomly delve into an esoteric topic or two weekly, and in the course of explaining it, we lie about it to one another. It is incredibly engaging as a shtick and entertaining for over 100 episodes. 100 lies, sir. Welcome to Dingo and the Baby on 92.2.
Dingo, dingo, dingo. My baby!
Michael, I'm going to need a clip.
Of course.
Ooh, you'd like that. You'd like that little clip, wouldn't you?
You
Such a
speak in
dirty
a very
clip.
quantized matter, like you are constantly performing to a self metronome, and you're just stuck on 16ths.
Well, I have no rhythm, so that explains a lot.
You and I have something in common, finally.
Well, oddly enough, the both of you also share something in common with the topic that we are going to be laying before you today. And I'm definitely with you, feeling the vibes, because today we are going to talk about the suicide solution.
It's impossible not to try and do the riff noise with your mouth when you say that.
I know.
That's someone
but
else's bit.
Calm down. We'll get there, Henry. Okay, so we have 5 lies winging your way. So get ready for it. There's something viscerally stirring about music in particular. And of course, in particular, the adrenaline-infused and distortion-drizzled rock music that we just know and love so intimately.
Oh, the devil's music.
Indeed. Speaking of which, we'll be getting there. For generations, gravelly guitars vaulting waves of masculine rage have provided a soundtrack to riots, bar fights, rough sex, and sporting events. But it's also offered a macabre backdrop for an even more depraved and depressed act from time to time. Think someone reading a Star Trek paperback while their partner bleeds out in a bathtub. Kind of sober.
That's romance.
Wow.
Good callback.
It's also an excellent meal.
Yeah.
But
Tasty.
now, certainly, metal music, throw the horns up here, one of rock's modern progeny, has anecdotally set the scene for countless murders and suicides over the course of its existence, and often by the artists that make it themselves, which is even more entertaining. So the question then becomes, as High Fidelity asked us, what came first, the music or the misery? People worry about kids playing with guns or watching violent videos, that some sort of culture of violence will pervade their spirit. Nobody worries about kids listening to thousands, literally thousands of songs about heartbreak, rejection, pain, misery, and loss.
It's literally all I write about.
Did I listen to pop music because I was miserable, or was I miserable because I listened to pop music?
Maybe what I think is tasty wheat.
Is really semen.
Looks the same.
You know, texturally, it's all the proteins that the body needs.
It's got electrolytes.
It's got what plants need.
Very salty.
Someone's going to get planted here. But in the 1980s, this question in particular was asked in a court of law, owing to the tragedy purportedly inspired by the work of one of Britain's most beloved sons, John Michael Ozzy Osbourne. So Ozzy, as we know, is a singer-songwriter and television personality who rose to prominence during the 1970s as the lead vocalist of the heavy metal band Black Sabbath, during which he adopted the nickname of the Prince of Darkness. So
Checks
there's
out.
your devil music there, Michael.
And Michael, you do know who Ozzy Osbourne is, right?
Yeah, I actually really loved their what was it? I guess reality for TV,
God, here
for
we
lack
go.
of better term. The Osbournes.
You fucking would.
Yeah.
This is one of the reasons why I actually legitimately got tingles when I started thinking about this topic, because this is one of those instances where the generational divide is going to be incredibly telling betwixt myself and the rest of you here, because many of you were still kind of, you know, in your ditties whilst I was going through my teen existential angst watching VH1. And so your impression of Ozzy Osbourne was determined by MTV and, you know, a reality show, and mine is dramatically different, as will be evidenced by this topic here. So I'm looking forward to watching everyone's eyeballs roll up in the back of their heads.
Tangentially, does VH1 even exist anymore?
I'm not sure it does. I have no idea. I have not been plugged
I'm
into a
on
coax for years.
Because I'm thinking about it. I mean, I don't have cable anymore. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I don't know many people that do. But I haven't heard anything. Like, there's no VH1 timestamps that I've seen other than, like, throwback shows. It wasn't Rock of Love another VH1 show? Like, all this
Flavor of
fucking
Love,
yeah,
Rock
yeah.
of Love,
and
yep.
hip hop. Yeah, it based off of what I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, it's still going.
Oh, that's
Oof.
trying!
Yeah.
Oh, well, Behind the Music is something that had redefined my perspective on crafting music for years.
And what was theirs? Theirs was not Unplugged. Theirs was Storytellers, right?
VH1 did have Storytellers as well, yeah.
Which was their answer to MTV Unplugged.
Uh-huh. And also very riveting, which the first album I ever put out, I did a Storytellers release party where I talked about every song on the record, and I was told I was pretentious. So, no small wonder.
The time that I ate a cheese sandwich in London.
That was a good cheese sandwich.
Toasted cheese sandwich, in fact.
Ooh,
Brie
fancy.
is something as a simple French table cheese. I don't know why everybody is so enamored with it, but
Wait,
anyway.
you'd eat brie in a sandwich? That sounds
Yeah.
so barbaric. I just like it with crackers.
I like
Listen.
Allison Brie. Does that count?
Let's keep
Yeah,
your
same,
racial
same.
insensitivity to itself, you little fucking
Anyway, back to the Prince of Darkness.
indeed. Wow. Do you need to, drink something after that? Are you okay?
The Prince of
Darkness.
Man.
You're gonna attack them?
I also discovered it was
Oh, fuck, here we go.
episode 12 of this little show where you introduced the porn names.
Okay.
Oh, actually, it was episode 11. Sorry, it was the Elephants on Acid episode. You asked us what our porn names were.
Whoa.
That's where we first met Peter Greer. Sadly, it was Robert at the time, but still. All right,
Yeah.
so one particular cut from... I apparently just skipped something here because we got off on a tangent. Okay, here's the Prince of Darkness again. The material in question we'll be discussing in depth today is Blizzard of Ozz, Osbourne's solo debut studio album released in September of 1980 in the UK and March of 81 in the US. The album was Osbourne's first musical foray following his firing from Black Sabbath in 1979. One particular cut from the album, something we listened to before we started rolling, is the song Suicide Solution. And it has been the galvanic point for a wide array of controversy to coalesce, most notably the October 1984 suicide of teenager John McCullum, someone who was suffering from depression and shot himself in the head after allegedly listening to the song. The boy's parents sued Osbourne and CBS Records for corruption of young persons who were especially susceptible to dangerous influences. And this is from McCullum et al. Versus CBS Incorporated et al. Do love legal clarifications, but...
You said 84?
Yes.
So that was like during the Satanic Panic and all that.
Indeed.
Oh,
so you can imagine the scabs were coming off in sloughs at that point. It was not good times for anybody.
Oof.
So, in his defense, Osbourne stated in court that when the song was being written, the words "wine is fine but whiskey's quicker, suicide is slow with liquor" came to him suddenly and were a reflection not on the merits of suicide, but rather on the death of AC/DC vocalist Bon Scott, a friend of Osbourne's who had recently died of alcohol-related misadventure. Bob Daisley, who co-wrote the majority of the song's lyrics, stated that he had Osbourne's own substance abuse issues in mind when he composed the song. The McCullum's complaint was dismissed on the grounds that the First Amendment protected Osbourne's right to free artistic expression. So those are kind of the broad strokes just to get us familiar here, but in order to understand how all of this coalesced into this, glorious lawsuit and the loss of someone's life, we must first understand the man behind the myth a bit more intimately.
Ooh.
So, I give you a little taste of Ozzy.
No
Something
thanks.
that
Yum, yum,
Sharon's
yum.
been enjoying that for quite some time. And there's going to be a lot of the Ozzy Osbourne impression this evening,
Yes.
kids, so my
Good, I'm
apologies
happy.
up front. Get ready.
Time to
I'm
gargle.
excited.
So in late 1967, Geezer Butler formed his first band, Rare Breed, and
There's
soon
no way his name was Geezer Butler.
his name is Geezer Butler. That is the bassist of Black Sabbath.
Oh, that poor son of a bitch.
It's not his actual name, but that is what
Oh.
he goes by. It's
Oh,
not his
you
Christian
chose
name.
that?
He chose Geezer, yes.
I mean,
bless
I
him.
feel like that's better to choose it than to be given that name.
He is probably one of the most eccentric individuals you will ever encounter in your life. He's a brilliant bassist, but he's also exceptionally into the occult, and he is a little bit excessive with some of his eccentricities. I'll just say that up front. So just to give you an idea why Geezer would be a self-attached
He sounds like a fun
moniker.
guy.
He
Yeah.
is most certainly a mushroom, yes. So, he recruited Ozzy Osbourne to serve as the vocalist in this new band, Rare Breed. The band played 2 shows and then promptly broke up, as bands all too often do.
Oh, yeah.
Osbourne and Butler then reunited in Polka Took Blues, along with guitarist Tony Iommi and drummer Bill Ward, whose band Mythology had recently broken up. They renamed themselves Earth, but after being accidentally booked for a show instead of another band that shared the same name, they elected to change their name yet again.
Was it
Fine.
Earth?
Yes.
Okay. I knew that they had to change it because of that, but I wasn't sure what the name was.
Yes, they were Earth
Okay.
at the time. So they finally settled on the name Black Sabbath in August of 1969, based on the film of the same title. It was showing across the street from their rehearsal space. They saw it on the marquee and sort of remarked to one another that, everybody loves to be terrified by films, which is strange. And so the band noticed how folks enjoyed being frightened. And inspired, the band decided to play heavy blues style of music laced with gloomy sounds and lyrics, which was, for those who are keeping chart here, not a lot of bands making this sort of like dismal, dirgy, angry, sort of filthy music at the time. It's not a lot of folks creeping into the visceral. And Zeppelin would get there eventually, but most everybody started as sort of like a blues infusion and then started getting grungier as they moved forward. Kind of a reflection of their environment at the time.
When did Pink Floyd start? I know that they're more psychedelic rock.
Also in the 60s, and
Okay.
they don't even get close to metal, my friend.
Yeah, that was the closest thing I could think of that like kind of approximated it, but like you said, that's nowhere close.
All around the same time, essentially.
Okay.
So, While recording their first album, Butler read several books on the occult and woke up seeing a dark figure standing at the end of his bed. Butler then told Osbourne about it, and together they wrote the lyrics to Black Sabbath, their first bit of material surrounding the morbid and macabre.
Hey.
So despite only a modest investment from their U.S. record label Warner Brothers Records, Black Sabbath met with swift and enduring success. Built around Iommi's guitar riffs, Geezer Butler's lyrics, Bill Ward's insistent rhythms, and buoyed by Osbourne's eerie vocals and irrepressible energy, early records such as their eponymous debut and the follow-up Paranoid sold huge numbers. We're talking record-setting platinum material at this point, as well as getting considerable airplay. Osbourne, however, recalls it with particular lament. In those days, the band wasn't very popular with women. Which I'll say that in English for everybody playing the home game. In those days, the band was not very popular with women. Apropos, at about this time, Osbourne met his future wife, Sharon Arden. After the unexpected success of their first album, Black Sabbath were considering her father, Don Arden, a very reputable representative of music, as their new manager, and Sharon was at that time working as his receptionist. So let's talk about gender roles in the 60s.
You didn't even say her name right.
I mean,
I'm
gonna work up to it. I have to work up to it. You don't just whip it out here, for God's sake. It sounds like everybody else has got a better handle on it than I do. So, in any event, Osbourne admits he was attracted to her immediately, but assumed that she probably thought that I was a lunatic. Osbourne said years later the best thing about eventually choosing Don Arden as a manager was that he got to see Sharon regularly, though their relationship was strictly professional at that point.
Right.
You were saying, Courtney?
I got nothing.
He actually is a lunatic, so it's...
Yeah.
Checks out. So Osbourne went on to record and release 8 studio albums with Black Sabbath before eventually being fired from the group.
Was it actually 8?
Yes, it is actually 8.
Oh.
I'm not going that cheap yet.
I was gonna say really name 5, but that's not my joke to.
I mean, I plan to if you'd like me to.
No, I'm good.
He can go
I'm good.
deeper.
All right.
But only if he asks.
Oh, I'll go deeper. So.
Ooh.
The albums had varying degrees of success, as you would imagine, but the band itself has been listed as the primary progenitor for most modern metal music. If you listen to folks talk about their influences, many folks popping up around the 80s and early 90s all credit Sabbath in some way, shape, or form. That's probably a misnomer, but that's not a lie. That's just me not caring to fact check.
Fair.
Their success and influence is, of course, undeniable, but despite their notoriety, the band was unraveling at an alarming rate. So thus, in 1978, Osbourne left the band for 3 months to pursue a solo project that he entitled Blizzard of Ozz, a name which he derived from a phrase that he had uncovered himself drunkenly muttering on a demo tape prior to passing out while leaving the tape running.
It's just like a Blizzard of Ozz, man. It's a Blizzard of Ozz. It's a Blizzard of Ozz. For someone who's never been drunk before, you can sound drunk whenever you want.
Yeah, I work on it really hard.
I was gonna say he's been around a lot of them, and he remembers it. So
Indeed.
I
have had a lot of exposure, sadly, and
Um,
not Southern exposure.
Did you say he was fired or he left the band?
He said fired.
Oh, okay. You said that he had left the band for his solo project.
Well, he hasn't been fired yet. This is 78.
Oh,
he was fired
okay.
in 79, so this is prior to that. So,
Okay.
3 members of the band Necromandus, who had supported Sabbath in Birmingham when they were called Earth, backed Osbourne in the studio and briefly became the first incarnation of his solo band. At the request of the other members of Sabbath, Osbourne soon rejoined the group. The band spent 5 months at Sounds Interchange Studios in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, writing and recording what would become Never Say Die. It took quite a long time, Iommi said. We're getting really drugged out with a lot of dope. We'd go down to the sessions, have to pack up because we were too stoned. I mean, we'd have to stop. Nobody could get anything right. We were all over the place. Everybody's playing a different thing. We'd go back and sleep it off and then try again the next day. Touring in support of Never Say Die began in May of 1978 with Van Halen as the opening act.
Huh.
Reviewers called Sabbath's performance tired and uninspired. Sounds like reviews of my music. But
Were they really
anyway.
opening for Van Halen?
Van Halen was opening for them.
Oh, my apologies.
Yes, but yes, Van Halen was really the opener on this tour. So in stark contrast to the youthful performance of Van Halen, who were touring the world for their first time. The final show of the tour, and Osbourne's last appearance with the band until 1985, was in Phoenix, Arizona on December the 11th.
Huh. Really?
That's a fact.
Is that a fact?
Is that
Is it-
bullshit?
That is bullshit.
It seems like a really easy one.
I was like, no.
You know what's funny, though? Is the only reason I did that as a lie is I wanted to give you a layup here. But the last show was
A
actually in
pity lie.
Albuquerque.
Oh.
Which to
Oh.
me
Honestly?
is more, I'm more incredulous that they stopped in Albuquerque as opposed to Phoenix. So that's why I
Yeah.
elected to
Albuquerque
include
is
that.
where things go to die. and not
Albuquerque's a
exist
great
anymore.
place. Have you even been there?
Yeah, I broke bad there once.
Their
Yeah, I
food
threw a
is
pizza on the road.
fantastic.
Yeah, name 5.
Don't get me started. I'll break out the spreadsheet.
Oh, no.
Ooh,
That's
Talk-
going to be your next
talk
episode.
nerdy to me. Okay.
The foods of Albuquerque.
On a
Oh, no.
spreadsheet.
On a spreadsheet.
It's a full
Shows
page
that in the
spread.
camera.
Let's go.
So
Screen
in
shares.
1979, back in the studio, tensions and conflict arose between the members. Osbourne recalls being asked to record his vocals over and over, as you commonly are in a studio, but what do I know? And of course, the tracks were being manipulated endlessly by Iommi, otherwise called production, I think. It's,
Wait, you're
this-
saying that you actually edit the tracks that you record? You don't just do it all natural?
You know, that's what's funny is this is a part of the time. The first records that they did, they cut on 4 tracks. And so they would they only had a certain number of inputs. So they would go in, they'd track the song live. And then the most they would ever do is vocal overdubs. And so, yeah, basically you were just setting up and playing. So this was kind of in the advent of the stages where you could take time and be more deliberate and actually try to get better takes. And apparently this was not something that Mr. Osbourne was willing to sit still for. He was like, I fucking do. I got a fucking pizza Albuquerque. So this was naturally a point of contention between Osbourne and Iommi. At Iommi's insistence, and with the support of Butler and Ward, Osbourne was ejected from the band on April 27th, 1979. Apparently they had like a seat, like a Bond car.
That's what I was thinking too. Wing.
And he was replaced by?
I will get there. But in any event, the reasons provided to Osbourne as to why he was fired were that he was unreliable. He was unreliable
You were
and had
unreliable.
excessive substance use issues compared to the other members.
Who had like mid-tier substance abuse issues.
They
Yes.
were semi-coherent when he wasn't coherent at all.
Well, fuck you, Peck. You're a Mormon. Next to you, everyone's an alcoholic.
Very fine point. The fuck are you doing here? This is a witch hunt. So,
I need to rewatch that.
it's fantastic. Osbourne, of course, claims his drug use and alcohol consumption at the time was neither better nor worse than that of the other members in the band. He was replaced in the band with former Rainbow singer Ronnie James Dio, known for his more operatic vocal style and lyrics surrounding elements of fantasy and theatricality. You merely adopted the dog. It is in the midst of this emotional chaos and uncertainty that Ozzy began to pen and perform the material that would eventually become Blizzard of Ozz. So, upon leaving Sabbath, Osbourne recalled, I got £96,000 for my share of the name, and I just locked myself away and spent 3 months doing coke and booze, alright? My thinking was, this is my last party, man, because after this I'm gonna go back to Birmingham, and I'm gonna be on the fucking dole, man. However, Don Arden signed him to Jet Records with the aim of recording new material. Arden dispatched his daughter Sharon to Los Angeles to look after Ozzy's needs, whatever they were, and to protect his investment. Initially, Arden hoped Osbourne would return to Sabbath, and they were kind of hoping that this was going to manifest eventually. He was managing them personally at the time still. And then later attempted to convince the singer to name his new band Son of Sabbath. which, of course, Osbourne hated and rejected.
Yeah.
No, no way.
Don't,
Stupid.
I don't blame him at all.
Was it actually pitched?
That
to
was
rename?
actually pitched. He
Oh.
wanted it to be called Son of Sabbath.
God, I would have been so insulted.
This is my new
You
band
and-
now. Taking it.
Congratulations.
Copyrighted. Done.
I mean, it has to exist.
You'd
Of
hope.
course. There's probably a bajillion cover bands of Black
Speaking of
Sabbath
which-
or something like that.
I just bought an LP by Zach Sabbath, which is the Zach Wild Sabbath cover band. And Zach Wild, for those of you who don't know, was Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player for a very long time. And he actually has a similar vocal timbre. So that record's fucking amazing, and I would absolutely recommend it. So go snag Vertigo if you're inclined. They're actually super metal about it, too. They're not doing a digital release. If you want to buy the MP3s, you have to spend over $1,000 on Bandcamp. They will not sell it to you otherwise. You have to buy physical media, which is really fantastic.
That'd be like
The
that.
boys have balls.
Also, I just checked, and Courtney, you are good to go. It's good to talk to the founding member of Sons of Sabbath.
Perfect. Let's do this.
Alrighty.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sounds like a motorcycle gang.
Yeah.
In any event, now I'm just going to have to say, Blizzard of Ozz is, of course, one of the few albums among the 100 best sellers of the 80s to have achieved multi-platinum status without the benefit of a top 40 single. As of August of 1997, it had achieved quadruple platinum status according to the RIAA, and while Blizzard is considered a landmark album not just for the Prince of Darkness, but for heavy metal in general, it has also proved controversial, as I alluded to earlier. 5 years after its release, the parents of teenager John McCullum, of course, filed that lawsuit and alleging that their son had killed himself after listening to the song Suicide Solution. It should be noted that during this time frame, Osbourne had released a follow-up record, Diary of a Madman, which ultimately led to Ozzy suffering his own tragedy. On March 19, 1982, the band were in Florida for the Diary of a Madman tour, and a week away from playing Madison Square Garden in New York City. At the time, a light aircraft piloted by Andrew Aycock, the band's tour bus driver, so obviously you'd want to let him pilot the plane.
Was he a cock or a man?
Yes,
He was both. He was a cock man.
he was a man with a cock.
Cockpit. Aha.
Tired of these motherfucking cocks on this
This-
motherfucking plane.
Thank you for the cockpit joke there, Michael. I appreciated it.
You're welcome.
So, of course, the plane was also carrying the ubermensch and great guitarist Randy Rhoads and Rachel Youngblood, the band's costume and makeup designer. And for those of you who do not know, Randy Rhoads is sort of a god of metal guitar to a lot of people. He is the founding member of Quiet Riot and started that band and then left to go perform with Ozzy, and Quiet Riot sort of carried on in his stead with his blessing initially, but that was Randy's thing. And he is a phenomenal guitarist, and this is terribly unfortunate because the Rachel Youngblood, as I said, the band's costume and makeup designer, and the plane crashed while performing low passes over the band's tour bus. So Mr. Aycock there was trying to be cute and wound up crashing, so the left wing of the aircraft clipped the bus, causing the plane to graze a tree and crash into the garage of a nearby mansion, killing everyone aboard.
So you would
Damn.
say he was too cocky, right?
What's the joke?
To Tsunami.
I'm sorry. It
Well
was
played.
low-hanging fruit.
No,
I had to.
Just
I
a couple,
appreciate your efforts.
just a couple of balls, you know, just a couple of balls
And a cock.
and a cock.
And a cockpit.
So, the crash was, of course, ruled the result of poor judgment by the pilot in buzzing the bus and misjudging clearance of obstacles.
God damn.
Call that an understatement of the fucking century, but
That's
experience.
the understatement of the century.
I touched my nose for those of you listening at home.
Jeez.
Experiencing firsthand the horrific death of his close friend and bandmate, Osbourne fell into a deep depression. The tour was canceled for 2 weeks while Osbourne, Sharon! And Aldridge returned to Los Angeles to take stock while Sarzo remained in Florida with family. So then, on November the 1st, 1985, the lawsuit against Osbourne and CBS Records was filed by the parents of John McCullum. But wait, there's even more seasoning to go into the stew at this point. Because throughout his career, many religious groups have, of course, accused Osbourne of being a negative influence on teenagers, stating that his genre of rock music has been used to glorify Satanism. To Michael's point from earlier. So this is where a lot of things were kind of coalescing into a really nasty period of history for America, in particular where music was involved. Scholar Christopher M. Moorman, because I didn't want to say Mormon, but that's...
Please, is that true?
That's his name. It's Moorman.
What is up with these names tonight? Like,
it's the 80s, my friend.
Oh,
we were a little
God.
phallocentric in the Americas.
more,
cock.
man.
What do you want,
Gotta give
less
me
man?
more. Yeah, I am a lesser man, so I would feel
What about
better
quarter man?
it. I would like 1/8 of a man, please.
Lead us, half man. I drink and I bone things. Anyway, scholar Christopher M. Moorman compared the controversy to those leveled against occultists Aleister Crowley and William Butler Yeats, who, for those of you playing the home game, Yeats was actually the Ademptus Exemptus of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn at one point. And a call back to John's favorite of all of the orders. So each was demonized by the media and some religious groups for their antics, as well as the surrounding religious fervor and cult-like followings they inspired. Osbourne himself was most certainly a consistent public spectacle at the time, to his credit. In 1981, after signing his first solo career record deal, Osbourne bit the head off of a dove during a meeting with CBS Records executives in Los Angeles.
Fake news. It was a bat.
No, it was a dove.
I thought it was a bat.
That's another
Wait,
time.
my friend, we'll get there.
Oh,
That comes later.
'Cause wasn't-
first blood.
Apparently, Osbourne had planned to release doves into the air as a sign of peace, but due to being exceedingly intoxicated at the time, one dove that had sort of just flown down and landed on the table in front of him, he grabbed the dove and just bit its head off. So they have photos that they were taking of this whole thing unraveling, and he's got blood like running down the front of his face from having just this flopping bird in his hands, which is just glorious. He then spat the head out, blood still dribbling from his lips, and was photographed. So, despite the controversy, the head-biting act has been parodied and alluded to several times throughout his career and is part of what made Osbourne famous. Subsequently, on January 20th, 1982, Osbourne bit the head off of a bat that he thought was rubber while performing at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines, Iowa.
Did he get rabies?
While many have stated the bat was alive, 17-year-old Mark Neal, who claims to have thrown it on stage and is said to have brought it to the show, dead. However, to many people's claims, Osbourne was purported to have gotten rabies at that show and had to go get shots. But that's kind of, I think, anecdotal. I'm not sure that's true.
So the next time
But-
you go to a wedding where they release doves, like, you know what to do.
Indeed.
Execute Order 66.
Wipe them out. All of them.
Do it. Do it.
Unlimited power!
The doves mean peace among worlds.
This is what it sounds like when the doves cry, motherfucker. Here we go. So,
I'm surprised John didn't say anything about them being fake or, robotic or cameras or anything.
Well, this is after Eisenhower. Yeah, they were fake then.
okay.
Oh, yeah, well...
I'm
if you
amazed he
mentioned,
wasn't
they're
electrocuted
fake,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
well,
just filled with
explain
jelly
that,
and
John.
jam.
Michael, don't be
Explain
fucking
that.
ignorant. There were real birds, and then Eisenhower and the FBI and the CIA, they all got together and they fucking exterminated them. We don't talk about it as much as we should.
What happened is they fell into the flesh vortexes and then were gobbled up.
Mm.
I love a good devouring from a flesh vortex.
Don't we
I love
all?
Flesh interfaces. Mm.
So, to keep his streak alive, on February 18th of 1982, granted now this is all within a few months of each other, okay? So just imagine the run that this gentleman is on. February 18th, 1982, while wearing his future wife Sharon's dress for a photo shoot near the Alamo, Osbourne drunkenly urinated on a cenotaph erected in honor of those who died at the Battle of the Alamo in Texas.
Hell yeah. Beautiful.
Is there anything more metal?
That's a very fine point. I remember this fucking Alamo. So, a police officer subsequently arrested Osbourne on site, and he was banned from the city of San Antonio for a decade.
That seems like an overreaction.
Yeah, is that real?
It is real.
Did he ever say how he got to be wearing his future wife's dress?
They were trying to be incendiary, so he was just
okay.
wearing. They
was
wanted
just
him to put
doing
a
it,
dress
okay.
on just to be weird.
That's fair.
And it's
And
not
he's
as far
like,
afield as he's gone, because then,
No.
despite the array of strife, the charismatic frontman certainly showed no signs of slowing down, drunkenly asking, "Do you want to see my cock, man?" to 19,000 fans at the Miami Dinner Key Auditorium on
they're
March
like-
2nd of 1982.
They're like, yeah, okay.
Sure,
So
why
every
not?
other
It's
month.
part of the
Sure.
ticket, I guess.
Apparently
Thanks
this
for
was...
asking.
All right, here it comes. Hold on.
Here is consent.
At least he didn't bite the head off of it.
I was going to say. This is my blow pop, man. I was just trying to find the gum.
I did it. I finally reached it myself.
How many licks does it take to get to the center of that?
Ask Sharon.
Shit!
Nice try.
That's my last time, I swear.
This was, of course, an exceptionally provocative move, even by his own lofty standards. So while no one was ever able to prove that Osbourne actually removed
out.
his cock from his pants at the during this disastrous performance, the ensuing media circus and public outcry over his alleged wang-wave, not my words, but it's beautiful, compelled the Florida State's Attorney's Office to issue a warrant for his arrest. So he was arrested in San Antonio the month prior. He's now being arrested in fucking Florida. And after surrendering to the authorities the next day, Ozzy stood trial and was accused of indecent exposure and open profanity, which I love.
Oh.
Of
He's
the
like,
two.
fuck it.
Did he really get open profanity? Was that
Open
really
profanity, that is the charge.
Ah, shit.
That was a thing.
Now, no evidence was actually offered to the court to prove that he was being indecent. No one actually had photographic evidence. Anecdotally, there wasn't anybody saying they saw his penis, and so he was just allowed to go free. However, this was kind of the icing on the cake for a year fraught with controversy for Ozzy, and we were only in March. While the drama up to this point was somewhat sophomoric, it was about to take a rather bleak turn. On New Year's Eve of 1983, over a year removed from these other hijinks, Canadian youth James Jollymore, and these last names are not being made up.
Why?
This is purely circumstantial. He killed a woman and her 2 sons in Halifax, Nova Scotia, after listening to the song "Bark at the Moon." Because apparently lycanthropy is a thing that can just take you after listening to music, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was just saying, oh, yeah.
Okay, all right. It sounded like you were waiting for something further, my friend.
No, do you want me to
Oh,
turn
yes.
it? Oh, here, let me try it again.
Indeed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My man! So a friend of the murderer quoted, "Jimmy said that every time he listened to that song, he felt strange inside. Like he said when he heard it on New Year's Eve, he went out and stabbed someone." Cool.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah,
Does
well,
this
if he-
get into like playing music backwards and like the hidden messages at all, or
Yes.
okay?
So, in 1984, California teenager John McCullum committed suicide, of course, listening to Osbourne's Suicide Solution, purportedly. The song deals with the dangers of alcohol abuse, as I alleged earlier. I alluded to earlier, sorry. So, McCullum's suicide led to allegations that Osbourne promoted suicide in his songs. So, despite knowing that McCullum suffered clinical depression... His parents sued Osbourne, in McCullum vs. CBS, for their son's death, saying the lyrics in the song, "Where to hide, suicide is the only way out, don't you know what it's really about," convinced McCullum to commit suicide. They also had claimed that there is backward speaking on the track. Now, they don't say
Nice.
you have to play it backwards, but they claimed that he said phrases and then they ran them backwards, and he was saying, get the gun and shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something in the song actually midway through that sounds like he says, get the gun, which is hilarious because in the behind the music where they're talking to Ozzy about it, he's like, I never said that, man. I never said get the fucking gun. It certainly sounds like it a little bit, but again, it's just, and shoot is a vocal effect that they were putting on, which is just a weird sort of trancy thing. And he doesn't say shoot anywhere. It's just one of those things that's happening.
Also, just with like hauntings and stuff, the more you want to hear it and the more you want to see it, you're going to be more predisposed to find it. The harder you are wanting that to exist there, you will find a way for it to exist.
If you're an alcoholic and you drink 4 bottles of Jack Daniels and you die of alcohol poisoning, it's not the booze's fault.
Right.
So if you have clinical depression and you're listening to a song about slowly committing suicide with alcohol, it's not the person's fault that thought's injected into your mind here. It's not
Like
introduced
pouring gasoline
randomly.
on a fire. Yeah.
Is Zachary. Or bringing dynamite to a gunfight. But in any event.
It's called, and I'm going to butcher it, but I'm doing it for the sake of butchering, pareidolia? It's seeing things or patterns where there aren't any. Pretty
Okay.
much. Yeah. I knew that there was a word for it, but it's that idea where if it sounds something that you can discern, then your mind will, like, the more you hear it, the more you think about it. If you're already biased towards hearing something, like now that you mentioned that there was an alleged that he says, grab your gun,
Uh-huh.
if you were to hear it, we're more likely to say, oh, that definitely sounds like it, when it could have just been him mumbling or
Right.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the family's lawyer suggested that Osbourne should be criminally charged for encouraging a young person to commit suicide, but of course the courts ruled in Osbourne's favor, saying there is no connection between the song and McCullum's suicide. Osbourne was sued for the same reason in 1991 by the parents of Michael Waller for $9 million, but the courts once again ruled in Osbourne's favor. The song wound up causing so much controversy that it ranked number 3 on the list of the Filthy 15, which, for those of you too young to encounter this, was the list of objectionable songs Tipper Gore and the Parents Music Resource Center held up as the justification for requiring parental advisory stickers on albums.
Yep.
Nice.
Recalling the case brought the McCullum's family and the media frenzy. Ozzy was in England when he received an urgent phone call from his wife and manager Sharon in L.A. I got a call and Sharon's like, pack your fucking bag, man. Get on a plane. We're going to Los Angeles. You got to get over here, like, right now. And I was like, wait. What the fuck happened, man? I don't know what's going on. And she's like, just get on the goddamn plane, you drunken moron. And I was like, oh, what the fuck are you talking about? In any event, I go to LA and I'm like, what the fuck's going on, man? What happened? So I fly for 11 fucking and a half hours. I get to LA, I go through customs, I come out not knowing anything. What the fuck's happening? And there's like 200 fucking cameramen there, man. And all is flashing these fucking lights in my face. And I'm coming through the gate and I'm like walking in front of like some fucking film star or something. I was like, who's the famous person in front of me? And then all of a sudden, like someone pokes a mic in my face and they're like, what have you got to say about the fucking suicide, man? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I don't know what the fuck's going on. So I'm getting in the car, and then right there, Sharon tells me. If you didn't understand any of that, essentially, he had no idea what these allegations were, and had to fly over, and this is how he got introduced to the
Jeez.
situation. It's not a lot of fun. So, McCullum was, of course, found shot to death on his bed in Indio, California. I probably should have thrown a trigger warning in here somewhere, but we'll have them, in the show notes.
I feel like if the title says "Suicide Solution,"
Can probably extrapolate. Yeah, well.
Yes, but still all the same, we'll put it in the show notes.
Although it was, of course, quickly determined that the wound was self-inflicted, his parents were, of course, looking for something other than themselves or his personal peccadillos to blame. And there you are.
Oh, so sad.
They claimed there were hidden lyrics in the song which incited their son to dispatch himself, and that listeners were urged to get the gun and try it, shoot, shoot, shoot. I forgot that I had this in here later on. But in any event, Osbourne, a popular star of heavy metal music, responded that Suicide Solution has no hidden lyrics, and it's actually an anti-suicide composition written about a fellow musician who drank himself to death. Although it is generally legal in the United States to express any viewpoint or feeling, strangely enough, just look at our former president, it is not legal to directly incite specific or imminent violent actions as it stands, unless you were the former president of the United States, and then Congress will just let you slide on shit like that.
Is that a lie?
That's not
Feels
a lie.
like a lie.
This
It should be a lie.
Something January 6th. Something, steal the vote.
Mm-hmm. No, that was actually included in one of the articles that I was reviewing, and they said this is specific. It's not legal to directly incite specific and imminent violent actions. Or at least it wasn't until last year.
Cool.
Anywho, since this standard is of course hard to prove, virtually every attempt to hold an entertainer responsible for allegedly inciting action has failed heretofore. In this instance, and this tickles me beyond belief, Los Angeles Superior Court Judge John L. Cole rejected assertions that hidden lyrics in the song, about hidden lyrics in the song, and said the suit reads more like a novel than a legal pleading. I think they said something similar to Giuliani as well, but...
Oh, when you can have trial by combat.
Mm-hmm. We have to look very closely at the First Amendment and the chilling effect that would be had if these words to be held accountable, Cole said. If the words were to be held accountable, good God. Thomas Anderson, attorney for the parents of John McCullum, said he would appeal Cole's dismissal ruling. "There's no redeeming quality to these lyrics," he said.
Oof.
"I think this case will be heard by a jury, and when they do, Ozzy Osbourne and CBS Records will be in deep trouble." That didn't quite play out the way he expected, but what are you going to do? All right. Attorneys for CBS argued, of course, that Osbourne could not be held any more responsible for his listeners' responses than could Shakespeare for Hamlet's soliloquy, or Tolstoy for Anna Karenina throwing herself under the wheels of a train, or the producers of the movie MASH for entitling its theme song, "Suicide is Painless." If CBS and Ozzy Osbourne are held civilly liable for what is on those records, then all the rest of these works are at risk, CBS attorney William Vaughn said. Certainly McCullum was a most unfortunate young man who may have been particularly susceptible and troubled, Vaughn acknowledged. But does that mean that every writer is going to have to write to the lowest common denominator so as not to disturb even the most susceptible of all of us? At issue is whether or not the hidden lyrics really exist and whether McCullum listened to them repeatedly before dispatching himself, and whether such lyrics are protected as a matter of law under the Constitution. And, of course, as we've learned, the courts have traditionally held that the First Amendment's free expression guarantees are restricted when others may be harmed. However, the measuring stick most often applied is whether the words are intended to incite specific immediate action and are directed at a particular identifiable group. Like, let's all go down to the Capitol building.
Wouldn't it be wild if you met me at the Capitol building?
I'll meet you down there. I've got the pizza.
You know, the one with the special sauce.
The big sausage one?
Ooh.
Oh.
That was definitely
You
not.
haven't tried to kill everyone at the Capitol hard enough
Oh, God.
to form a coup like that. Obviously, it's a joke. Hi, guys. Now that we're being
now that you've incited more violence.
Yep.
10 out of 10.
Now that I'm also on the same list, Shane probably is.
It's a fun watch list to be on, my friend. The monthly newsletter
great.
is very entertaining.
Sweet.
So,
Well,
Aw,
if they want to pay for some of my OnlyFans subscriptions, that would be nice.
Is that like a do not fly list or what?
Basically.
it's actually Zip Your Fly List, I think. Is what,
that makes
mine
more
was,
sense.
But, yeah.
Backroom casting fly list.
So, of course, a California court dismissed the McCullum's appellate lawsuit in '88 as well, ruling that John's suicide was not a foreseeable result of Osbourne's songwriting. And thus, while we can't always be certain which came first, the music or the misery, in this instance it appears that there was plenty of misery to go around before Ozzy ever got there. Osbourne wouldn't be free of its grasp for quite some time, unfortunately. The most notorious, good gracious.
What are you, Michael?
Apparently today, I shouldn't have had that coffee before we started. I'm salivating like a frickin' pooch passing peach seeds over here, but the most notorious incident came in August of 1989 when Sharon claimed Ozzy had tried to strangle her after returning home from the Moscow Music Peace Festival. Define irony.
He really doesn't like the idea of peace.
Apparently not. Apparently this is one of those where I think it was rumored he was snorting ants off of the sidewalk during these things from, I think Scott Ian from Anthrax claimed that he saw Ozzy just snorting ants off of the ground. So he was a little far gone, understandably. The incident, of course, led Ozzy to 6 months in rehabilitation, after which time Sharon regained her faith in her husband and did not press charges. Sadly, Osbourne has battled addiction and alcoholism off and on for the rest of his life to this point. Most recently, in April of 2013, he revealed through Facebook that he had resumed drinking and taking drugs over the past year and a half, stating that he was in a very dark place, but that he had been sober again since early March of that year. So he also apologized to Sharon, his family, friends, bandmates, and his fans for his insane behavior during that period. But while the misery has taken many, it has yet to claim the Prince of Darkness at this point, and it is my sincerest hope that he will continue to elude the hand of fate for the remainder of his days. And that...
How old is he now?
He's old enough to know better.
There you go.
Let's see.
72.
There you go.
All right.
And still with just insanely, he's got waves like a Viking funeral for his hair there. It's looking lovely. But that, my friends, is all that I have for you on this topic.
Damn it, we only got one. And it was the
You
layup.
got
Oh,
Phoenix.
dang. I have a stab.
Give it.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned content
No,
warnings.
he shot himself. I'm sorry.
On
Damn.
records specifically, so the content
Yes.
warning on the front of albums.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say that was due to this type of music? Because my understanding was that had to do with rap music specifically.
A lot of it was rap music, but they had Prince on that list as well.
Okay.
So yeah, it wasn't just a specific type of music. They had an array of material on the Filthy 15.
Gotcha.
So it weren't just that, but you're sniffing in the right area.
Gross.
Was it number 3? You said there was like 3 out of 15 reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It was number 3?
It was not number 3.
When you said the number, I was like...
It wasn't even on the list, technically. So Courtney's
Oh.
correct, but it wasn't that it was
Oh.
just rap music on the thing. So, I mean, I'm giving you both credit here. It's the reason why I tend to give it to you all when you start sniffing around the right spot. But yeah, it wasn't on the list. It had nothing to do with the list, but I was like, it's close enough. It was within the same
That's
time frame.
fair, yeah.
Well, there you are. Congratulations. That is now 2 of the 5. Anything else, anybody?
Nah.
No,
Nah.
but can you imagine being his kids through all this? Like, Jack and Kelly have been through so much.
Well, what's even funnier is he has children from his prior marriage as well, and they were not on the show and have a lot of difficulty dealing with Ozzy in general due to how he left his wife and wound up with Sharon in the first place. So it's a wealth of other things I elected not to go into at the course of this, because I mean,
Dang.
I could have spent, this could have been Harlan Sanders again, and I was like, I just need to get through this because I'm obviously a goon for Black Sabbath. I loved them to death. It was one of my dad's purportedly favorite bands, and then I started listening to him, and he didn't know anything about the band and couldn't have cared less, which is very interesting. But as we've mentioned before, I think I talked about it on Damn Jams at the very least, is that the first band I was ever in was a Black Sabbath cover band initially. So obviously I'm a little dyed in
Little
the
taken.
wool. Just a scotch. But all right, so lie number 1 is that the boys' parents sued Osbourne and CBS Records for corruption of young persons.
Oh.
I went the Socratic route here. He was actually sued for encouraging self-destructive behavior in young persons is the exact verbiage there. So it was not corruption of the young. I changed it slightly so it wouldn't be on the nose, but that wasn't what he was sued for.
Okay.
Furthermore, I have a feeling the name derived from saying that Blizzard of Ozz stemmed from a memo that he found on a demo tape where he was drunkenly rambling. That was actually how Keith Richards wrote "I Can't Get No Satisfaction." It had nothing to do with Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy's the Blizzard of Ozz was a name suggested by his father.
Huh.
So there you are. Line number 3, of course, was that the last stop on Sabbath's tour was in Phoenix, Arizona. It was, of course, in Albuquerque, New Mexico on December 11th of 78. So, good times for that. There was a lot of talk about the Van Halen connection, strangely enough, in some of these articles I was reading as well. It was very interesting to see that Sabbath were the over-the-hill gang in the 80s, and they were still performing and rocking out in the public like in the late aughts while Van Halen was broken up 3 times over. So, lasting power. Lead singers are problematic, I think, if we've learned anything from watching metal bands.
Oh, yeah.
Lie number 4, of course, was the inclusion of William Butler Yeats as someone who was compared to Osbourne, naturally. They conveyed him being somewhat similar to Aleister Crowley, and this is also presumed because Osbourne wrote a song called Mr. Crowley.
Yeah.
And so they connected him. But yeah, there was nothing to do with the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, nor William Butler Yeats, but I was just tickled to find out that he was actually a member of the group and wrote about it extensively. I was going to throw LaVey in here, and then I was like, nah, it's too close. So let's go a little further afield here. And then line number 5... all of the bit about him asking a crowd in Florida whether they wanted to see his cock had not anything to do with Ozzy Osbourne. That was Jim Morrison who did that in 68, I think. Not Ozzy at all. But after the string of stuff that preceded it, I thought, here's a lie I can whip in.
Yeah,
yep.
I
Just
believe
a
it.
string of bad luck.
Indeed. But so none of that stuff happened. He was never brought to court. He was never... so technically, Michael was sniffing around where he said the open profanity, but that was, in fact, the charge that Morrison got. So technically, that was not the lie.
That was not part of it.
But
Gotcha.
it folds in neatly enough, but you were in the right spot. But I didn't feel it was close enough for me to cause you to dig further, because we would have gone on for a while, I think.
Yeah, because I open profanity sounds more reasonable in the 60s rather than the 80s.
Yes, indeed. Particularly when coupled with indecent exposure, which was, the pair of charges that he had brought. And he actually was put in jail at the time, as opposed to my lie. They locked Morrison up. They're like, this is nonsense. And then he was dead in France a few months later, strangely enough. And then finally... of course, was number 6, that the song was ranked number 3 on the list of Filthy 15 by good old Tipper Gore, just one of the greatest names in the whole of human history. And that is all that I have for you of my 6 lies.
Nice.
Well done.
Well, thank you.
You just did the episodes that you could talk like Ozzy for like half of it.
You'd think. I also figured out that I think I lied to you. More than, because I said it was 5
said
lies
5
up front,
lies.
and I had 6. Yep.
Okay.
I did not realize, apparently, because I was writing
So
stuff
there's a
in as I was
seventh
going.
lie?
Yes. Lie number 7 is that I had to
no.
lie in there at the end and whipped it around. This is one of the problems with trying to do... So again, this was another one of those topics where there was very little, actually, that was congealed. And so I had to kind of pat together a lot of stuff out of whole cloth. And so a lot of this is my meandering train of thought. And there's a lot of disparate articles. When you see the resource list on this thing, I've got like 12 different things listed because I had to kind of cobble together a narrative. So that would be why I forgot that I added another lie in there just to try to keep it interesting. But, well, thank you all for indulging me for a moment. And I appreciated the opportunity to go biographical again.
So our
You do
character...
enjoy it, and you do it well.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Oh, I'm done.
I was going to ask, are character voices going to be required from here on out? Because that seems to be a new trend.
No, I don't think it's necessarily a requirement, but it certainly makes it more fun. I'll tell you that much.
You know, now that all of us have had some voice acting experience.
Mhm. And we'll continue to
Experience.
have it as we go forward. Strangely enough, if I can cajole and twist everybody's nipples for a minute. So we'll see where that goes.
I did want to mention something that I read in the news recently. So if you recall Little Nas X, he's actually releasing, I think it's a new single or a new album. I can't recall. I believe it's called Industry Baby.
Mm-hmm.
And he, in advance notice of the song being aired or published or whatever, he warned everyone that it is not for children. It is not for specifically your kids.
Oh, nice.
Did you see the tweet about it?
Yes, where the person was like, "Well, my 2-year-old
Loves your
listens
music.
to your, and you should be, considerate of that." And he's like, "Oh, bless your 2-year-old's heart, but sometimes I just want to be a slut or something like that." And I'm like, "That's fair. That's fair. I can understand that completely."
Everything he's done leading up to the release of this new music has been very entertaining to watch.
Did you watch his, I guess, air quotes, courtroom drama?
You should just do a follow-up to your episode. You should just write a little mini-sode and just put it out.
I thought about it, but it's only that tweet where he says, "Watch your kids around my music."
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
And then he had a TikTok sort of, I guess, series where he pretended that he was getting sued by Nike, even though they settled out of court in April for the whole Satan shoes. So, but that was it. I was thinking I was going to write something, and I was waiting to see if more stuff materialized. But that was the whole meat and potatoes of it.
On the subject of ticking talks, Melissa did show me a TikTok where somebody that she routinely checks in with had a joke about we don't have to believe in evil anymore. The devil's been slayed because Little Nas X seduced him with a lap dance and then dispatched him from hell henceforth and forever. And it's like, okay, it's our savior.
I like it.
Our little pole dancing savior.
Funny you bring that up as well. I was recommended this show, and I'm halfway through its first season, or it's the only season so far. It's called This Is Pop on Netflix, and it's a documentary series on the history of pop music, or like little tidbits of stuff. It is insanely watchable and interesting to me. But they bring up the episode I'm on currently is when country and pop try to cross over, and interesting things that have happened in music history. But he's brought up because of that crossover of getting removed from the country charts for Old Town, or is it Old Town Road?
For his Billy Ray sideburns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that he was on the top of the country charts for however long, and then they decided he wasn't country enough, so they took him off the listing, and that posed the question, what is country?
Nashville, putting the cunt back in country.
Oh yeah.
Yeehaw!
But I've learned that Dolly is a gem.
I love her. I might do an episode on Dolly. She's one of my favorite people.
Oh, please.
Which breast are you going to start with?
It's hard to choose.
Each one is a separate part.
It's a pair of very long chapters.
A lot to deal with.
Shane, is someone getting the breast of you?
I'm not gonna. I'm giving partial credit for that one because if you're
gonna
gonna enfold Dave Grohl and Dolly Parton together, it's gonna be a very difficult ride.
Guaranteed, they've sang together.
The breast and nothing but the breast.
That'd be the boob fighters, I'm afraid.
Oh, there we go.
That might actually be good for like breast cancer. We'll have to record that song, change the lyrics slightly, and see if we can get them involved. Anywho, I don't want to titillate you any further with concepts going forward, but as per usual, we have got all of the socials that you can go and scope out. You know where they are. If you don't, there's a link tree somewhere that you can find. And of course, on the tubes of you most wonderful Wednesdays, you can find us doing fan fiction or random nonsense. And since I didn't get a definite response from anybody here, is everyone willing to hang out while I rickroll a little bit of the Magnus archives? Is that reasonable?
As long as you let me take a piss first.
Yeah, I'll let you do any number of things in my mouth, Daddy.
Cool, I'll be
Ooh-wee.
right over. It's like
On
a
camera.
40-minute drive. It shouldn't take me too long.
It'll
I'll
be
be there
worth
in
it.
about 30.
If your
Half
urethra
expect you to
holds
just
up.
get up and leave.
I mean, that wouldn't be that jarring after watching John touch his feet for the last hour and a half.
I'm sorry. I'm usually not this close to my feet. It's like
Well, what he
shaking
is.
hands with myself.
Good job. Good
That's
job.
why your toes are so fucked up. Fucking
Yeah,
Gollum over
probably.
here.
Oh, yes, recording podcasts, precious.
Process.
And Michael's got the one ring over there.
I'm gonna need that clip. You gotta give the clip.
Give it.
I always give the clip.
All right,
Nothing
then.
but the clip.
If John ever dies, his funeral eulogy needs to just be, is there a clip? Can I get a clip of that? Is there a clip? And we'll just play
that.
clips. Yeah.
Empty that clip, baby.
Actually, what I hope you three would do in the event of like an untimely passing or like an accident, would be to go through all of the audio, like all my isolated audio, and create like a prank call board, and just ruin people's lives with my prank call board.
Just call your mom with it. Like,
Whoever, I mean, I'll be dead. I won't fucking know. Nothing happens
don't
when you
give a
die.
shit.
So I'm not going to know that this happened.
That's fair.
I have a feeling Kristen would appreciate it.
Like, if she got a call out of the blue and was like,
What's up,
cunt?"
bitch?
she'd be like, oh, I miss him.
And then, yeah, I don't
It's
know.
like he's here.
Yeah.
So you have my permission.
John, I will make a talking real doll of you upon
Oh
the
my
event
God.
of your untimely
Yes.
demise, and we can continue our relationship post-death.
Nice.
We'll continue recording the podcast as well. We'll just
I
have that
mean-
soundboard.
If you're gonna invest in the tech, I don't see why you wouldn't.
Fair.
Yeah. We keep changing the jokes, just stay the same.
Exactly.
And so does John's engagement in life and after.
He's pretty engaged with those feet.
What can I say? I'm a foot guy now.
Well, it hasn't fallen off yet, so I guess you can keep playing with it. I think that's going to wrap it up in another tasty little burrito here.
That has nothing to do with babies.
You know, a baby burrito sounds scintillating, actually.
Delectable. The hint
Oh
of
God,
flour.
stop.
Yeah, all right. A little ASMR for you here, John, just to finish up. But for this week's insane, crazy train of an episode for Disinformed, I'm Shane.
I'm John.
I'm Michael.
I'm Courtney.
Mr. Michael.
Zip it a zoop, we're out of here.